been thinking about this all show. Like you you weren't on the show last week, like for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I thought we had the week off. At
I
least that's what I thought.
I did a show and I thought it was with you. I I did a whole entire show. I was at 8 hours. Didn't realize they had some sort of like AI program pretending to be. I mean, they had the pictures in the
Wow,
background and everything. I mean, spot on,
AI's getting crazy. Have I done every show with you now? Now I'm questioning everything.
right? I guess maybe there might have been a week it was AI filling in for me. We don't even know. We don't even know
Yeah,
anymore. I'm just glad that whoever was posting it didn't post it. And that means it was probably either the janitor or the main control room guy because they had the week off for
yeah,
Thanksgiving. So we know we can narrow it down a little bit now. Try to
yeah.
figure out
Exactly.
who's
I
posting stuff.
know. It's I thought the same thing because you're like, yeah, I did the show. I said, okay, I'll move on. I don't know what that means. Maybe still, a little drunk from Thanksgiving, but that's
Still
crazy.
driving me crazy
It's
the whole show. I mean, I
this is
barely even saw Josh Allen's touchdowns. It was driving me so crazy.
Well, you just had to look up you had to look up every 10 minutes, and he'd have a touchdown. So that's pretty impressive that you were keep missing them because they were happening all the time.
Brutal day for my fantasy team. I was looking away. I didn't even play Josh Allen. Like when you don't go against Josh Allen and you lose all your weeks, you know it's a bad sign.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny when we started the slate and we were watching the games. Boy, were there some bad teams playing, but I think that helps teams actually pick up the pace on their scoring. And then you have that showdown to end the day. I felt like that game lasted forever because they just wouldn't stop scoring. Both teams wouldn't stop scoring.
Yeah, no, it was one of those shootouts that you could just tell was just going to go on and on because
Yeah,
neither D was playing. It was kind of the opposite of the Eagles and the Panthers and the
right.
Jaguars and the Titans. I mean, nobody wanted to score in those games.
I heard someone I saw on Twitter bet $3 million for the Eagles to win money line, and that would have netted only $400,000. And someone goes, "Do you have? Was it Mingo that missed that last? Who was the last? It wasn't Mingo. Mingo got traded.
It was
Who,
Leggett.
yeah, and they're like, yeah, Xavier Leggett. That guy has a Xavier Leggett picture right at the top of his doorstep now. Like he's like, this is my favorite player of all time because he missed
Well,
that wide open touchdown.
I think what's even more fishy about that whole thing is they had said that that bet was out there, so it wasn't even like a mystery going into the
Right.
game. Then that play, he scores a touchdown, he catches the ball, rolls into the end zone, and they say no, it hit the ground, incomplete. But they don't even take the time to review it. You're inside
Yeah.
2 minutes. Like it looked like that ball, he could have possibly like he bobbled it, but if the ball never hits the ground, it's still a catch. It doesn't
Good
matter how
point.
many times you bobble it, and it looked like he got his hands
His hand was
underneath
under.
it.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you not go to replay? You've got 2 minutes left. That's the whole point of your replay system is anything close. It doesn't have to be, no
Yeah.
matter what, we're going to review it. And that's why you can't challenge it. Like I would have thrown my challenge flag just to buy more time. What are they going to, call a
I know.
personal foul on me for challenging an unchallengeable play? Like lose a
Yeah.
timeout? Like if you've already used all your timeouts, like that was one of the worst things I've seen because that's the whole point. Review it. You got to review it.
Yeah.
You get an
Yeah.
angle that
And
shows it clearly hits the ground, then this is over. But nobody's talking about why didn't they
right.
review that? Because that's a
Well, you
game-winning
know why?
touchdown. Yeah, right. Over $400,000. Like you'd think there's more money riding on the Eagles to cover than there is that.
Yeah, that was crazy when they said that. I mean, first of all, I get the bet. I mean, it was a huge line. What was it, like 14 by the end of it? By the time kickoff happened. But again, Bryce Young and the Panthers, they are no, don't sleep on them. They are are good. I shouldn't say good. Good is I'm throwing out crazy words right now after a long day. They are a competent team now, and they have players, and they are a couple pieces away from having a decent offense. I mean, Dave Canales, man, what a job he's done in just one, not even a full season there so far. I mean, how you go from garbage can to competitive, that's pretty good for the Panthers, I'd say.
Yeah, especially in that division. I mean, they definitely could come back and challenge for that division next year. I mean, if
Right.
no other team steps up, I mean, I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on. The Saints, it's disaster basically all over the whole NFC South. I
Yeah.
mean, if Bryce Young works out, he could own that division for a decade because unless Michael Penix works out, there's nobody there. I mean,
Yeah.
Baker looks good, but they don't have a great defense. He's not a long-term fit, like
Right.
maybe he can be there for another 5, 10 years, but he's not going to be there forever. And neither is Mike Evans. He's getting closer to retirement. Godwin
Right.
looks great, but he's still
Two
already getting up there in age with the
and
multiple
two
season
massive
injuries.
surgeries.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough. They got good running backs, but yeah, that team just isn't like it's not gonna be threatening, as a playoff team. So there's not much there, and there's a time to pounce right now. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, man, brutal, another brutal performance. I don't think he's thrown a touchdown in 4 games, which is not good from what I know from about football.
Yeah. So that means also Drake London and Kyle Pitts haven't had any either.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. Oof. Hey, he didn't have a goose egg this week though, so that's nice.
Yeah, one catch. He got on the board, and I mean, it's tough. I don't think it's really one of those things where you can hate on Kyle Pitts that much because when Kirk Cousins looked good, he was putting up numbers. So
Sure.
something's going on with Cousins. I don't know if it's the
Yeah.
Achilles not quite being right. He thought it was, sometimes that was part of why I thought they should have sat him the first 4 games is just because now you're asking him to play 17 straight. Like coming
Right.
off the Achilles, the endurance. I mean, that's where you're going to be lacking. And we saw it. Just
Yeah.
he's not the same guy that he was in Minnesota, especially mobility wise, but he's up there in age. It just didn't make sense to try to push a full season on a guy less than a year after he busts his Achilles. And just because Aaron Rodgers is going to try to do it, they think that, oh, of course somebody else can do it. Not the best move. And I don't really think that Aaron Rodgers is at 100% either. A lot of people are hating on him because he's old and the Jets aren't winning,
Yeah.
but he's not playing horrible football and he's not at 100%. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things.
And he had more weeks, right? Like he got hurt. He
Right.
tore
He got
the
hurt
Achilles
one,
week
two
one.
weeks before. Right. So it's like what you asked Cousins to do was highly unrealistic. Nobody would have asked him to
Yeah.
do it if Aaron Rodgers hadn't come back last year in that same time frame. But he wasn't coming back and starting. He wasn't playing, and
Yeah.
never know what that full season of wear and tear is going to do to you. And I think in some
No.
ways too, the quarterback position they've overvalued it, saying it's the most important position in all of sports, and they act like that's the only thing that matters. And it's like, oh, we've got a quarterback, the rest of the team doesn't matter. It's like, well, this is the NFL. Like everybody's got to show up. If you got a bad defense, you're not gonna. If the Bills D plays like that, they're not going deep in the playoffs.
I was gonna say, like, let's talk about some of the studs today. Josh Allen scores 6 total touchdowns. Is that right? Right? 6. And
And there were
you
six
know, we
separate touchdowns. It wasn't,
hold on real
you know,
quick.
he didn't score a touchdown and then get a pitch and scored himself. So he didn't get two in one play. He actually scored 6 different times.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part, right? Like, oh man, there's something playing right now in the background.
It's a
All
good
right,
thing
we're
we're
back.
off.
We're back.
Good thing we're not live
Uh,
right now.
yeah, I know. I was like, what's happening to my mic? Yeah, no. I mean, if you're telling me Josh Allen scored 6 touchdowns and the Bills don't win, that's crazy talk to me. That makes zero sense, especially if they're the ones that just beat the Chiefs. Just look like they look like the AFC favorites, and they somehow lose after. That's to your point. It doesn't matter how good you are. Where's the rest of the team?
Yeah, no, they got themselves in a hole and they tried to dig out, but
Yeah,
they needed something from the defense, and defense couldn't give them. You need a spark. The special teams or defensive touchdown, some sort of turnovers. And the Bills D is not the stout D it had been. You can't just expect it to just
yeah.
stifle up and stuff guys. I mean, they used to be able to do that, and now it's much more of a bend don't break type D.
Lots
Like
of
let's just
injuries.
let
Yeah,
Josh Allen win. Yeah, no, they're playing with injuries, and The big advantage they're going to have is those home games. Nobody knows how to play in the torrential snowstorms like they do.
Where would you rank that game in fantasy lore? Like, when we're talking about the big fantasy games that people remember, does the 6 touchdown Josh Allen game, is that up there, especially in week 14 for fantasy owners? That's pretty wild, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it's got to be up there. I think I saw it's the most a quarterback's ever scored
Yeah.
in a game. Like it's right up there with there was a Mike Vick game where he scored 51 for the Eagles. When he came back and resurrected his career, and he did it both throwing and running. But yeah, no, I mean, when you put up all-time points, it's history. I was telling my wife on Saturday, she didn't understand why all these people wanted to go to the SEC championship. I was like, well,
Right.
it's history. It's like
Yeah.
you're going to be a part of history. Like no matter what happens in it, it's still going to be remembered as either a minor blip in history or the most important SEC championship and blah blah blah. No matter what it is,
You can say I was there,
historic.
or I had him. Yeah.
An NFL game, not always like that, but you never know. They can come out of nowhere, and that game, it's going to be an all-time great for Josh Allen.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable to watch. He could do anything out there. I'm pretty sure the Bills were like, "Can he come on defense? Can he play DN for us too?" they were hurting a little bit there. So another player,
season high, because I don't have him on any teams this year, so I don't need to see him do any more of that.
I know. I'm like, I don't want to face him the rest of the year. Another player that broke out, huge game, Zach Charbonnet. Seahawks fans been waiting for this guy. He was supposed to be, more impactful last season, but really didn't get much going. And this year he's gotten a couple more opportunities because Kenneth Walker has been injured and again out this game. And this guy goes nuclear against Arizona. A key game for the Seahawks as well to kind of keep them at top of the NFC West. I mean, dude looked different. The Zach Charbonnet this time last year versus right now, he looks like Kenneth Walker. Like that's what he looks like. He's powerful back. He's getting really, really great runs, and he's running people over. He's looking for contact.
Yeah, he looks good. He's kind of found that right balance between speed and power. He looks like he's kind of a little bit leaner than he'd been in the past, so he's got a little bit more burst, but still strong enough to run people over, not afraid to do it. And I think he fits a little bit better as the starting running back for Seattle. I don't think they're necessarily going to make that move right away, but I think when Walker comes back, it's going to be a much more of an even split. Maybe they find ways to rotate series, kind of like you see Detroit do with Gibbs and Montgomery, something to make sure Charbonnet is getting his touches, and also to try to keep Kenneth Walker healthy, because this isn't just he's got a nagging injury that bothered him earlier in the season, but now these are new injuries. These are constant things that are banging him up, and it just doesn't seem like he's going to be a guy that can go 20 carries week in and week out. So how do you balance that? You try to get them both 15 touches a game, and whoever gets hot maybe gets 20 and the other guy gets 10, whatever it ends up being. But there's just no reason at this point to think that Kenneth Walker is going to be just some bell cow back, because he's proven he can't stay healthy to do it. And Charbonnet is good enough there too. And Charbonnet is one of those runners too that doesn't look as good in 5 carries as he does in 15 or 20. Like he really needs those extra carries to make sure he's able to grind it out, and finally was able to bust one loose.
Yeah, and look, to your point, Charbonnet is going to get a good share of carries if Kenneth Walker comes back, right? We don't know what the timetable is really for him, but that means you have probably a 10th round, 11th round pick if on redrafts, and that's huge for your team. If that's a guy who's going to be getting a huge amount of the carries going forward, that's a league winner. That's a type of player that comes out of nowhere and you're desperate and you need for week 14 and on. Like that is a huge get and situation. A lot of luck involved, but that's part of fantasy football as well, and yeah, whoever faces Zach Charbonnet too, you're like, this is gonna be nice, backup quarterback or backup running back, and get cooked again. Right? Some backup. it was a crazy week so far.
Yeah, a lot of people were able to get him off the waiver wire this week in shallower leagues.
Yeah.
So yeah, he went off and something that nobody was expecting, but there he goes. And Puka Nakua, I mean, I guess we should have been expecting more of the same. This guy continues to be a versatile guy. He doesn't have a ton of speed, but he doesn't need it. Finds a way to beat zones and break through guys, break tackles, and it's one of those things where you think speed is so important in the NFL, but there's
Right.
very few instances where a wide receiver is really running full speed. It
Right.
seems like they would be, but coming off the line, not so much. Coming into their first break, not so much. It's like unless they're going deep or they're getting the ball in the end around or the ball's in their hands and they see open field, they're not going full speed. And so we've seen, Xavier Worthy not able to use his speed that much and Puka Nakua being able to play without that high end speed. And maybe sometimes he's running where other guys are jogging and they're going the same speed, but doesn't really matter. If
Yeah.
you know how to get open, you know how to use that nuance and body positioning. He's been better than I think anybody would expect coming into this year after having such a fabulous rookie season. You think, well, some of it's fluke, some of it's
Right.
Cooper Kupp wasn't around, this, that, the other thing. No, I mean, it looks like this guy's probably going to be the best wide receiver in his class. And that's saying something considering you had four guys go in the first round and he looks
Yeah.
like he's clearly better than all of them. Maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba keeps progressing and eventually
Sure.
becomes a better receiver, but right now it's Puka Nakua and it's really not that close.
Yeah, and I think if you're a Seahawks fan or a Jackson Smith and Jigba fan, you're hoping your best season ever is Puka Nakua's rookie season, right? Like if you're Jackson Smith and Jigba, like that is like a ceiling for many players, not just that rookie class for many. He's just making crazy catches too. Like that guy, I've never the way he can balance his body. He's made more diving, like legitimate diving catches from a wide receiver than I've seen from anyone else. That guy just has so much control, and when he hits that ground so hard, the ball does not move. It is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, and
Had that
he's a touchdown.
double tiptoe catch on the
Yeah,
sideline as well earlier today. I mean, just doing everything he can. And when Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp are going off like that, the Rams are
I
hard
know.
to beat. And 6 touchdowns from Josh Allen isn't even enough. So wild,
Yeah,
wild game. And another guy from that rookie class that has been, oh, where'd he go? And then it's like, oh,
yeah,
that's everything that you could ever ask for from Jordan Addison. Three
right.
touchdowns,
Yeah,
120 something, I think, yards. I mean, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe
right.
130. Him and Justin Jefferson were like one catch, 1 yard apart, but Addison gets that extra touchdown. So, and you can outscore Justin Jefferson on a 2 touchdown day. That's pretty solid fantasy numbers. And Addison's a tough guy because you'd think he's not really a must start, but now all of a sudden you look at these numbers and
Yeah,
you're like, it's kind of hard to say he's not. And that's kind of the really tough thing with a lot of these guys who profile as more wide receiver threes. They can put up that high end number and they do it. But then when they don't have a big week, they're putting
it's
up 30,
rough.
40 yards. And you're like,
Yeah,
why did I think I could start this guy?
yeah, and it's also Sam Darnold, right? He's been struggling a little bit. I wouldn't say I'd say struggling in the sense of he wasn't putting up 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns in the last few weeks, and then this week he kind of
He's
came
looked
back alive.
more like Sam Darnold. And now all of a sudden,
Yeah,
it's like he
exactly.
looked like Sam Darnold some weeks, and now he looks like Sam Darnold's with a head coach that knows how to set everything
Yeah,
up. I mean, Kevin O'Connell's done a
exactly.
great job. I think some of that is what we're seeing with the issues with Kirk Cousins. I think,
Sure.
that coaching staff in Atlanta would be very different. What you're seeing in Minnesota, it'd be interesting to see what they do with Sam Darnold. I think the playoff run will dictate that a lot, but I think he's getting closer and closer to getting at least franchise tagged by the Vikings so that they hold on to his rights. Maybe they play him one more year, see how it goes. Maybe they end up trading him. Maybe they end up
Yeah.
trading before the season. Maybe they work out a sign and trade deal with another team. But he's played well enough that I would be kind of surprised to see them just let him walk into free agency.
Yeah, it'd be tough. And I think Sam Darnold had to step up. That run game hasn't been really strong. Aaron Jones finally had a decent game, 70 plus yards and a touchdown, but they really aren't that efficient with the running game, and they're really relying on the passing game. So I think Jordan Addison benefits from that. Obviously, Justin Jefferson benefits from that. That one play where Justin Jefferson's like waving his arms and he's like, I'm so open, throw me the ball. And there's like he's sitting down on the 5 yard line, just calling for the ball. And Sam Darnold throws a like I would say like a pop up, and there's still no one near him, and he still scores. So I think Justin Jefferson needed that game too. I think he's due for some big numbers coming up because he hadn't been scoring touchdowns, and now that he's scoring touchdowns again, like that guy is going to be well worth the wait come playoff time.
I hope so. I got him on a couple of teams, and we'll see. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster for a guy that's that good. Fantasy, he's played a lot better football than he has for fantasy this year. He's
Absolutely.
Consistently over 70 yards every week. Just the touchdowns, they seem like they were there at first, and then Sam Darnold's got a lot of other guys involved over the last couple months. So nice to see him bounce back with another big game. But a bunch of guys just did not show up this week as well. I mean, high-end guys that you thought you could count on either to begin the year, and they've really just kind of meandered through the season, or guys that we've been able to count on all year that just laid a dud this week. I mean, A.J. Brown, you think, oh, Carolina Panthers, that's easy. 85 and a touchdown, no question, but comes out, puts up 43 yards. Wasn't like it was just a blowout where Saquon Barkley went nuts. Barkley doesn't have a touchdown. It was tough sledding for a Carolina game, and I think one of the problems we're seeing is the Eagles are willing to play up or down to their opponents, and so a little bit of a down game. It wasn't like the Panthers just played out of their minds and stuck with them.
Yeah, it wasn't like a 40-30 game. It was like, what, 22-16 or something like that. Are you worried Jalen Hurts throws for 108 yards? Does that worry some for a lot of it? I know that they've had incredible weeks before that, but 108 on the Panthers, that's kind of scary numbers for what is considered a superstar quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's considered a superstar quarterback because of his rushing. I think that he's one of those quarterbacks that fantasy-wise, he's top 5. NFL-wise, he's top 15, top 20. Like there's a huge gap in his fantasy production and his NFL production because rushing is weighted so heavily for fantasy. I mean, that's going to be the next thing that I think leagues and different things are going to start addressing is, wait, why are we giving quarterbacks a point for every 10 yards rushing when they can run for 10 yards on any pass play that breaks down, any zone coverage, any man coverage where they're sliding? I mean, it's just, I think we're going to start seeing quarterbacks needing like 20 yards for a point for rushing just because it's known universally as a cheat code. And a guy like Jalen Hurts, it's like you take away that tush push, you take away his rushing, and what are you left with? I mean, he's got weapons. He should be able to throw for 200 plus yards every game, but that's not always the case. And Carolina must have came out with a good game plan because they were able to shut him down. And Barkley, they didn't shut him down, but he also didn't run rampant and kill them either. So
didn't Barkley still I think didn't he break 100 yards? But they're like, oh, what a down game for Barkley.
Like 120. Yeah, like 120 rushing, and they're like, oh, what happened?
Good job.
Like, why couldn't he tear up the Panthers? Like, clearly something's wrong. You can't always bust off 60-yard runs.
It's true. Another guy that was just unclutched to start this week was Jalen Reed. I just feel so bad for these owners who had this guy who had an incredible beginning half of the season, and then on Thursday Night Football just lays an egg. I mean, just an unforgivable score for week 14 when you needed a player who's been so explosive at times and not just show up when Jordan Love kind of goes off that game, right? And he's talking smack to Detroit about saying, just wait till I come to Detroit and I'll show you what's up. And he gets one target and gets a goose egg. He's just been all over the place this year. I think he's still going to be a decent fantasy player moving forward, but that's so inconsistent. It's hard to trust someone like that at this point. It's like almost like Xavier Worthy, like just a step above, right? Yes, he gets a couple numbers here, there, more, but it's like a speedster that really relies on certain game plans and game scripts in order to do well. It's a tough pill to swallow for sure.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes a guy like that reminds me of like a Marcus Valdez Scantling or
Yeah,
Westbrook Akine. I mean, these guys are like, because they haven't done it in the past, they're like, oh, how could you pick him up and start that guy? Who you clearly don't know how to play fantasy. Look at the targets, this and that. And it's like, why is it that some players that's totally acceptable for and some it's
good
not?
point.
And Christian Watson's a very similar player to those guys as well. I mean,
Yeah,
he steals the yards, but he did it all on like 4 targets. Romeo Dobbs didn't play that game. I mean, some of it makes me wonder, is Jordan Reed not able to get it done if he has to line up outside, if
yeah,
he has to line up against harder coverage? Or is it really just Jordan Love being, some games it hits, some games it doesn't? I mean, he's not a high touch guy, but where are the rushes? I mean, at the very least,
yeah,
Reed should be getting 2 carries a game. He's been explosive with those throughout his career and especially this season. So that's one thing that you're like, why isn't that there? If you're only going to throw to him once, why isn't he returning kicks? Have him return kicks,
right.
return punts. Like, what are you
Get the
saving
ball in
him
his
for?
hands.
And then, I always wonder with guys like that, why is there not a screen? Why
Yeah,
is he not being thrown a screen pass every game? A guy like Debo Samuel, not doing well these days, but they at least throw him in
yeah,
screens. Like he had 2 for 20 yards or something this week, but I didn't see it. But I'm guessing one of them was a screen because that's what they do. And almost San Francisco's problem is they got too reliant on screens. They were just running them
yeah.
too well. And now it's like, where's the rest of that offense without that downfield presence? They're getting themselves in a little bit of trouble. Offense is finally stalling. And the one thing you're really seeing with San Francisco is the NFC West knows how to shut down that offense. And the rest of
Yeah,
the NFL may not have caught up, but the NFC West has figured it out. And that's really killing Shanahan and the whole Niners. And Shanahan's not in good favor with the fans there. It's kind of wild to think that he could possibly get pushed out. Like, I don't think it's going to happen this year, but
right.
year or two down the road, if they're not back in the playoffs, I don't think he's going to stay there long term. I mean, it's
Yeah,
very hard to stay in a city when you raise expectations to the roof and you don't get over the hump with the Super Bowl. You
definitely. And I think like think of Pete Carroll, right? Has this insane start to the Seahawks, franchise, and then isn't able to get back to that afterward, right? And like the fans were just itching the whole time, even though he may be the best coach we'll ever have for the Seahawks. It's just hard to appease those appetites, right? When you have been there and accomplished it or so close, and now you're getting farther away from it. So what I'm interested is in I think Brock Purdy's come down to earth. I think his metrics now match what is happening on the field at times. I still think he's, a really good quarterback for where he was drafted. The value is incredible, but what does San Francisco do next season? How much money do they give to Brock Purdy next year, right? How much are they willing to commit? Because he hasn't looked great. And yes, there's a lot of injuries, no CMC. Ayuk's out after, just a few games and never got really going. So it's a really tough situation San Francisco's offense is in. One thing I do know is that running back, you could stick anyone back there apparently, and they'll do well in fantasy. So that's at least a good sign.
Yeah, Garendo looks good. A little banged up though. Like,
Yeah.
you might have to go out there and grab Patrick Taylor at this point. I mean,
It's
that what we're getting
that
to?
position's
Like,
cursed for them.
yeah, it's like, this time of year in Dynasty, it's so slim pickings. You're looking at backups. I mean, Desmond Ritter, like maybe he comes in and plays. Nobody else in Vegas. Khalil Herbert, just hold on to that. There's nobody else in Cincinnati. If Chase Brown got banged up, Khalil
For
Herbert
sure.
would have to take over that role. But and DK Metcalf's another guy that I want to talk about, just being just down year across the board. Like,
Yeah.
he's so consistent in getting catches and reasonable yards, but he's not producing fantasy wise. Like, I think he's playing better football than he is as a fantasy producer. Like, the offense doesn't run
Sure.
through him in the same way we thought at the beginning of the year. They're just throwing nonstop. They've ramped it back. They're running more now. And DK, I think he's probably a little bit more banged up than he's letting on, coming
Right.
back.
Yeah.
Like he's able to play again, but he's not really producing at that high end level. So some of that may be him just being banged up, but he also isn't a guy that runs a full route tree, and it may be more of just the emergence of JSN finally
Yeah.
starting to really take over and be the number one target, or if them being more willing to go away from DK if they want to slide coverage and double him. It's like, okay, we've got other guys. We're not gonna force it to him.
Yeah, I think now you have a guy who's so talented. To your point, with a full route tree, can do so much, has such great hands. It's hard to then ignore that, right? It kind of happened last season, but they're like, not this season. We got to get him the ball. Real quick, up here with both players going down a little bit this season or this week. Alvin Kamara 44 rushes, James Cook 20 rushes or 20 rushing yards. Which one are you worried most about if you're a fantasy owner? Is it James Cook because you took him so high, or is it one off, or is it Alvin Kamara who's been sliding since his rocket start?
I think it's probably Kamara just because that whole team is kind of gone downhill at this point. Like, do they bring back Chris Olave? I mean, coming off a concussion with very little to play for, like
That was
Derek
the
Carr
saddest
got
injury.
beat
David
up.
Carr's injury was so sad to watch. It's like, what are you jumping over someone out of bounds and you land on your own head? Is just not a way you want to go.
Yeah, so that looks like it's going to be, costing him some time, if not the whole
Sure.
season. It's hard to know. So then now you're looking at another backup quarterback. Do they put in the regular backup? Probably not. You're probably going to see the rookie. Um, he didn't look great early in the year. So I just think the Saints are kind of a lost cause, and Kamara's going to realize this is not worth it. And we
Yeah,
might
and
see a lot more of Kendre Miller too. I mean, it's a great time to
yeah,
let the young running back get some run. And,
right.
Josh Allen's not going to run 3 touchdowns every week. So Cook's got to get some of that work.
Say that now.
They got behind. They should have thrown to him more, but I don't really know why they don't use Cook as much as they can. They finally started to during the middle of the season and looked really good. And now they get away from it and they get behind early and they were playing catch up for the whole game. I mean, I think their defense is going to make them run the ball more. Their defense isn't good enough to just get in these blowouts. They've got to run clock, even if it means you're running clock to punt. That still might be more effective to stay on the field for 6 minutes of game time and punt as opposed to blitzing down the field in 2 minutes and scoring a touchdown or a field goal. Like if your defense can't stop the other team, what are you going to, you're not going to win games. So sometimes it's better to slow it down and play more possessions and do kind of what Kansas City's doing, where they're
Right.
saying, hey, we're just going to get this game into a situation where it's comes down to the last possession and we're going to get the ball in our guys' hands.
We're gonna win. Yeah, we're gonna win. They
Right.
love to do that, and they've been proven it once wrong. So out of all the games so far. All right, quickly help
Hopefully,
me out.
hopefully tonight the Chargers can come through.
Yeah,
Division games are always tough. So see what
yeah,
happens.
and this is for the Chiefs to win the division again. I'm sure a lot of football fans would love for them to just at least look a little human for once. They have looked human, but not win a division, not go on. Real quick, I need help. Dynasty. Who should I pick up? I mean, if I'm a team that's out, like if I'm a team that's out, is there anyone should I on to, or if I'm a team that's in, who do you think we should grab real quick?
If you're in, go for older players, to fill spots that you need. Some guys that are going to be out there. The best players out there are going to be older, up there in age. Good time to grab those guys. And if you're out of the playoffs, this is the perfect time to add young guys that look talented, that might not necessarily have appeal to start right away. Maybe guys that are injured that you think will be back next year. Guys like Eric All I've talked about before. It's on
Yeah,
IR, young rookie.
good point.
Jalen Coker out this week, another good young player that you don't want to start necessarily right now in his career, but these are the kind of guys that you want if you're not in the playoffs. Start preparing for next year because that's what you're doing in Dynasty.
Yeah, I picked up. There's a couple guys I think young guys that would be great. Isaac Davis, we saw a huge uptick in his usage, in the last, not just today, but in the last couple weeks. This team, wow, I don't know how long this coaching staff will be intact. This coaching staff likes this guy, Isaac Davis, back there. The other guy, I told you I'd stay away from Raiders running backs, but this guy has too good of a name to not pick up. Sincere McCormick. I just like that first name, but he looks like a little bowling ball out there. I like that guy. And then Grant Calcaterra, he's the tight end for the Eagles. Goddard's been hurt. He's 25. I don't know how long Goddard will be like the main guy there. And so he caught his first touchdown today. So someone to keep an eye on if you're low on tight ends too, outside of Eric Hall, because I do like Eric Hall a lot. I think I have him in our league.
Be wild if Goddard ends up retiring before Zach Ertz.
I know, wouldn't that be wild? Yeah, wasn't Goddard supposed to be the Zach Ertz replacement? Zach Ertz is having another great year.
Zach Ertz is like, I'm just gonna keep playing. Like I'm good. I'm good enough. I keep playing.
It's crazy.
But be nice if some point he let the backups take over. Ben Sinnott, maybe coming out of the bye. Maybe it's time he gets some looks. I mean, Washington needs something. Zach Ertz is, he can run full speed and he's still not beating anybody.
No, but Jalen Daniels loves that guy. Maybe that's because he can find him every time on the field. He's like, there's no way he's that far away.
He's always in the same spot because he's always got to run full speed. Like doesn't matter who's in front of him. He's gonna find the spot. Get to the right spot. So,
all right, we got some mysteries, by the way, that we got to figure out before our next show. Are they using AI to replace us? And then who the hell keeps posting our videos? We got a lot of things happening in the background that we need to figure out. What the fuck's happening?
Right. Next season's just going to be AI versions of us. They've just been stealing our digital and intellectual property all season just so they could release an AI show.
The good news is they can't have as bad as takes as us, so that's good, right? They can't formulate stupid takes like we do. We're too skilled at that.
Yeah, and the video quality will probably be better too.
That I will not disagree with. All right, I'll see you next week.
Clear? All right, let's do it.
Clear.